Hi there. This week on Rambling Weekly, we're going to be discussing profiting off of nostalgia and how that kind of works out. So let's start this. Welcome back. That was a part of a song called "Terrible Fate." It's on Theophanie's Times and Majora's Mask, and it is like I love that song, but I also love that whole album. And why it doesn't seem like I don't know. It kind of feels like it gets forgotten about. it's a remix of music from Majora's Mask, obviously, and the guy was really clever with it by releasing it on the day that people were flipping out. Not like everybody or anything like that, but you had the whole "Oh my God, the Aztec calendar's got the thing and it says December and that sort of thing." And it was like, oh, this is the end of the world. So it was like what, December 21st, 2012 or something ridiculous like that. Anywho, he had prepped it by like putting up a website that it was going to be coming out in 3 days, and all you saw was like Majora's Mask, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is kind of creepy. And then he actually put out the album that day, and I I still will just listen to it randomly, every other week or so. It's a fantastic album, and I highly recommend that you get it. And if you do get it, to toss a few bucks his way, because I totally think the guy deserves it. Or gal. I'm actually not sure who Theophany is, but I apologize if you are a woman and I assumed you to be a man. But yeah, that's he. Like I remember the very first time I heard that album, and it was, it's in December, and I was in Japan, and I was like, you know what, let's do some walking, and I likes to walk. So it's good for clearing the mind. It's at least good to kind of keep the body moving. But it was pretty cool, because here I am walking, and it's dark out, and where I was living, it wasn't in the center of downtown, but I was kind of a little off towards the outskirts of it. And so when I'd walk, I was kind of in a bit of a more rural area. So it was actually kind of dark, and I'd hear this music, and it was just creepy. Like, I was actually creeped out by it, but I was so excited by it too, because I was like, man, this is kind of creepy. But like, I like Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is really fun to me. I really enjoy it. There is a nice setting and tone to it, and I love it leaps and bounds more than Ocarina of Time. I'm not an Ocarina of Time fan at all, and I've lost all three of you. But no, it's just, yeah. If you totally check it out, Theophanie's Times and Majora's Mask. I will totally link you. Totally link you to the thing. But I will link you to the website that it was at, where you can get it. To be honest, I don't even know if it's still up. I assume, because it was the last few times I had checked. So if not, we will find ways to spread this dude's music around. Unless he's got iTunes, and I'll direct you to iTunes so you can just buy it from there. Yeah. So, how's everybody doing? Are you doing well? Excuse me, I'm kind of got a bit of a phlegm thing going here. I don't know if balls decided to finally just start kind of dropping, or I'm getting a cold, because everybody likes to get a cold around this time of year when weather fluctuates. They always say something about the just the weather in Ohio is that, oh, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. Definitely not that crazy when it's changing, but it certainly feels like it. I can't remember the comedian's name, so I'm not gonna feel like telling the joke, but he makes a joke about Boston weather. It actually might be Leary, now that I think about it, Dennis Leary, but talks about like how weather, if you feel like you have balls in your stomach from it going from like 70 to minus 12 to 50 to 20, and that's what this kind of weather has been doing this winter. So it has been surprising that a lot more people haven't been sick, but I have ran into a lot of people who think it's appropriate to be hacking along and then need to buy beer. I don't understand that, but whatever. So things have been going on. I've been a bit, I guess, stressed about stuff. I am trying to work out for the game that we're putting together. I tasked myself, but also because the other people in my group are doing other things, with doing the maps for the alpha. Now, when I say alpha, it's kind of like a hybrid alpha demo sort of thing. Like the alpha is in itself a little story just to kind of get the pacing and the just how the writing is. So to demonstrate how we want to approach an actual full-length game. Except for this is maybe 30 minutes to an hour at most. Unless you want to dick around in it for a lot longer, then yeah. But I've been tasked with doing the maps, and I was used to doing maps in RPG Maker, and those are fun because those are really easy. You'd be like, oh, la, 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 la. Like, you don't want to over clutter stuff, because if you, I don't know, like I see some people who make some really, really good ones, but then there's some where they make really good ones, but there's too much stuff, and so it's almost like sensory overload. So it's a good balance you have to make with that sort of thing. And like, I know from what tampering I did with it, there were some maps I can specifically think of and go, why in the hell did you do that other than to make it obnoxious? And that's the lessons we learn, children. But so like I'm working on this, and I'm working on it in a program called Tiled, and that is aggravating to me because I'm just, it is not something that I am very comfortable working with. And even though I made maps in RPG Maker and stuff, it is not the same. The brush, the terrain brush that we use, kind of, it's weird. It works really well, but then when it interacts with things that are not of the same terrain, it just goes haywire, and I just like it aggravates me in that regard. But then also, I am very terrible when it comes to drawing trees, and we have different pieces of things to draw that are for trees. So yeah, I mean, it will get done and it will look appropriate. It's just, it's going to take a lot of work. But that aside, that aggravation, I was so happy enough to get more Kirby, or more Kirby, Hoshino Kabi, into my possession. I've been a little bit, maybe just because slimes are a little bit more difficult to come across here in the America, but Kirby, on the other hand, there is quite a lot of Kirby to be had. So I've been getting different Kirby plushes and stuff, and this past week I got Wing Kirby in the house, so he's now chilling with me. And then I also, my siblings were kind enough to get it's one of the shirts from Hot Topic. It's black, but then there's pink where Kirby in the design is, and he's kind of inflated, and he's like I think he's like stretched out for a hamburger. So, yeah, good old Kirby. So I don't know, like maybe it's also because Kirby's really easy to draw. So when I was in Japan teaching and stuff, and it came time to draw things on the chalkboard, I would draw different Kirbys or Meta Knight and stuff, and the kids always really liked that, and then they would try to mimic that. And I kind of wonder how many of the teachers actually really hated me for doing that, because here's something that's a game into the classroom, and now they're just going to think of that for the rest of the day. So, I apologize, gomen, sumimasen. But, yeah. But I don't know, like, the way I taught classes was, yeah, I would be fairly demanding, but I'd also try to make it as fun as possible. So those were the balances I tried to make. And there's, of course, certain times where I'd have like a very demanding class, and the next time that we had class, it would be just nothing but fun. So I don't know. I think when you're dealing with younger kids, that's a way to go. Not even just younger. I think that's just how you should teach in general, really, is make it entertaining, or at least be entertaining, so that the if kids find it interesting, they'll seek it out and learn to do, like, figure out more about it. Like, actually a couple of the schools that I would go to with the elementary kids, I was having them learn things that they were not supposed to learn until their first year in middle school. Like, that's how, like, that's not like super advanced, but that's how interested and heavy they got into it. So I was like, yeah, I did pretty good with that. So, yeah, so Kirby rocks. And I also saw something about there's a new Kirby game for the 3DS coming out. I think it's like Battle Roboboto or something like that. Where he's like got the anger face going, but he's riding in a mech. Okay, it's Kirby. That's all there is to it. Let's see. I also got in a couple books. I'm just going to mention the one. I know I can mention both of them. One of the books that I got was Into the Land of Bones, and this book is supposed to be talking about Alexander the Great's expedition in Afghanistan, and I think also comparing it to the Afghanistan War of recent years. So I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out and what the details are for it. I honestly don't know the full extent of Alexander's conquest of Persia and all the way into, like, I know certain things, like his like there's a, I don't know the details though, but like there's the battle he had there at the edge of the Indian border with some random king who's just it's just kind of on the outskirts. He wasn't like super duper awesome, but his men had been going for like 11 decade or so, and they're like, we're done, okay, we're done. That sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't realize he went up into Scythian territory, so I am curious to see how this all turns out. Well, I know how it kind of turns out. He ends up dying, but don't we all? But yeah, I'm curious to see how I'm curious to see the detail and all that sort of stuff. And before I repeat that again, the other book that finally came in, and I'm very excited about it, is the centenary edition, like the 100-year anniversary of the complete collection of Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian. Yeah. I have never really read any of the stuff. I've read little snippets, but not straight up books of it. So, yeah, it's a beast too. It's like 1,000 pages. So, we'll see. I never really knew anything about Howard's. Did I say Robert E. Howard, or did I say Robert Jordan? And the reason I keep on mixing those two up, but Robert E. Howard. that's who. I've never really read any of his work. He has the Call the Conqueror, I believe. I did get an Audible book of his collection on the Pict leader, like the fictionalized version of the Pict leader, Bron Mak Morn, and I've listened to about 2 hours of it, hour and a half, 2 hours of it. The guy who reads it's pretty awesome. Like I like how he reads it, but just the stoicism in Bron Mak Morn, as well as his defiance of fate, is always just like whew. That's some powerful stuff. So, yeah, so I'm going through that Audible wise, but I just finished reading Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. I read it in high school, but I had not read it since, so it was good to kind of revisit that. And it's definitely one of my favorite books. Like I don't know why I could say that about that compared to other books. Why something like that? Because there's certain things about it, like Maria, Robert Jordan, who's the main character in that. Cause there's also another writer named Robert Jordan, if I remember. But Robert Jordan, he has this relationship with Maria, which is kind of, I don't want to say like shoehorned in, but it doesn't quite feel as natural as it could. However, it leads to a lot of interesting aspects to be explored within a character, and in this instance, it's Robert Jordan. How physical he thinks about things, how he kind of comes to the conclusion of, if something were to happen, let us live our lives within these 3 days, sort of things, and very, very. He and also, well, he just kind of coming to the conclusion that he was just starting to learn things, even though he was a professor teaching Spanish at a university. It just kind of goes to show that there's different types of intelligence, and this always kind of bugs me when people are like, well, this person's smart, and it's like, what the fuck do you mean by this person is smart? Are they smart with data? Do they know a lot of not random, but do they know a lot of information or facts? Are they emotionally intelligent? Can they empathize incredibly well? Do they have street smarts? Do they have social intelligence where they can maybe not even empathize, but are able to maneuver through social situations without having any sort of, let's say, lack of couth or putting foot in mouth syndrome? So it's just a very cool book, and I highly recommend it. If people have never read it, give it a read. It's a good one. So but I've blabbered on enough about that, so we're gonna take a break, and this song is Field of Gale, good old Falcon music. It's from East 5, by the way, which is, I don't know, it's a bit of a black sheep, but I do like the song a lot. So yeah, take a listen, and we'll reconvene after that. Hey there. All right. So yeah, that song is just I like a lot of the East music. It's got such good just kick you in the rear kind of thing to be like, yeah, let's get this going, let's do this, let's rock it out kind of sort of thing there. And for being something where for being a song that you're just kind of going through fields and stuff, you know, like it's good to have that kind of music because it I want to because of how the character of Adol Christian is, it's kind of like, hey, this allows you to be a bit more into it because the music's getting you more into it, and then also just playing the game is, you know, it's you're inputting or impressing yourself into the game, at least to some degree, but the game is impressing itself onto you. So yeah, it's good old Falcon music, good old East music, good old everything. But this section we are going to be talking about profiting off nostalgia. Now, this is a bit of an interesting thing. I just talked about buying a bunch of Kirby stuff. I remember as a kid playing Kirby games, particularly the what's the Superstar game for the Super Nintendo. I remember just blitzing through that and just playing it. Now, the first time really kind of I can think of when nostalgia got to me was going to Ann Arbor and seeing a bunch of different merchandise that had like Mario and game stuff on it. And it was like, you know, this is really cool, but I was also very poor, so I couldn't really buy a lot. So while it was quirky, awesome, cool, I wasn't really able to feed that insatiable appetite to slake nostalgia's hunger over my soul. And I kind of wonder about that. Like I don't have as much nostalgia if I go, because I don't live too horribly far from it, but if I go past where I used to live, I don't really get much of a, yeah, I don't get much of a feeling for it. It's just kind of like, okay. The end. But I just never really got anything about it there. It was just kind of like, oh, yep, all right, you did your thing. The end. Do 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 do. But I mean, you may be wondering, like, if you don't know, nostalgia. Sorry, I have such a huge mess on my desk. I like make these little notes for hey, things I should do today, or you know, that sort of thing. And one is always clean desk, and I think I've had that on there for about a week. It is cluttered with a bunch of just pens, papers, Club multigrain crackers. They're pretty delicious. I love those things. Kirby staring into my soul. But but yeah, so like I kind of wonder if that's really a good thing to see when people have things that kind of pluck those strings of nostalgia. For example, some of the websites that sell t-shirts with a game or for lack of a better word, geeky stuff. Like I like some of them. There's one, and I'm not even a big fan of Ghostbusters, but there's one where it has Mario and Luigi ghost busting a Boo. But I really like Boos, so I was like, yeah, I really, you know, the Ghostbuster thing doesn't get to me. Whatever. There's one of Yoshi's Island. I love that game, and I got a Yoshi's Island shirt and Kirby shirts and Zelda shirts. Like you know, it's weird how ubiquitous, and it's not like quite ubiquitous, but I mean it's, I guess, on the way of being ubiquitous, how that sort of thing has been. It's just like everywhere. Maybe not in the rural areas, but I mean it's in a lot of different places, and it's weird. Like growing up, I didn't see a lot of that. I was in a very small town, and yeah, I liked games, but I also kind of just went out and played. And that's not to say, well, yeah, I just sat on my ass and only played games all the time. That's not what I'm saying. As much as I enjoy games, it's not what I did a lot of as a kid. But the whew, goodness, that went down the wrong pipe. Okay, but like, there's some very interesting things about nostalgia. Nostalgia, there's some really interesting things about it. Here's something where you maybe feel a bit of lonely, and there's some people who've kind of done some studies on this, that when people are lonely, they start to think about things that in the past that makes them happy. And in doing so, it seems to reinforce these thoughts and ideas that we're still being a good, proper piece of the social puzzle. It's like a mental pick-me-up. Here is a state of melancholy that you're in, and a way to remedy that, you're like thinking about things when when they were different, but then you were also more a part of it. Like, that's a very peculiar thing that the brain's doing there. It's like, it may not, like, I never thought of it that way, but I never think too deeply about that. But when I start to think about it, I'm like, that's you're right. You're giving yourself just some here's some endorphins to make you happy. Don't kill yourself. Like, I know that sounds dark, but I mean, that's just kind of how I felt there. It's just like, it gives you good mental health. It allows you to reflect and reminisce. So you're thinking about things in the past. You could also regret certain things when you think of the past, but generally when it comes to nostalgia, you're thinking of something good, other than dogs barking in the distance. But there's some bad things about this whole thing, where or at least I would argue that there may be some bad things with this. I kind of wonder if, there's a very precarious line that companies and stuff have to straddle when they are using nostalgia to sell products. Now, you're looking at certain, t-shirt companies, toy products, and everything like that. They are banking on people who have nostalgia of these things to buy these, well, not always, but to buy certain things, like the Ghostbusters t-shirt, or the Ghostbusters Mario t-shirt, like the Yoshi's Island t-shirt. If there is not I'm so out in the countryside, but if they are not in the if they are not able to find people who have this nostalgia for it, they can't sell the product. They are they're in trouble, so they have to find a different way to sell stuff. So they have to have their pulse on the generation of people who are aging, and odds are they may be the same age or roughly the same age as we are. As I say that, being one of those people who are sadly aging, not like anybody else is aging, just myself. But so at a point, you're going to get to a point where it's not profitable to try to appeal to these sorts of people for that sort of nostalgia. You're going to have to get younger and then appeal to the next group of people and that sort of thing. It's a very, very cyclical thing. And, at some point it's going to be trying to think of what them younger kids always liked and all that. Yeah, I'm not hip. Oh goodness. But yeah, so also I kind of wonder if feeding the nostalgia monster is a good thing. Maybe every once in a while, but I kind of wonder if feeding too much into it is a bad thing. Case in point for myself, replacing the past with the present, or at least the present of then, and which is now the past. But time issues aside, for example, Blaster Master. I love this game. I loved it as a kid, and I would I played it at my grandmother's house in the basement and stuff like that. It was just I sucked at the game. I wasn't very good at the game, but I loved the game. And, I played it a little bit, but I ended up selling it at one point because I wanted GoldenEye. And that's not to say GoldenEye is a bad game. It's just, you kind of think about it, you're like, But that aside, I have those memories, but the thing is that I revisited that game in college and went through, played the hell out of it, beat the game. So now we got a problem because I fed into this nostalgic monster of, man, I really love that game. I really want to play it again. Played it again, and I beat it. I ripped through it and I beat it. And yeah, kind of wonder if in doing that, I replaced my feelings and stuff that I had for the game when I was a kid with now stuff when I was a college student. And so and now I don't even really feel nostalgic about it. I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I beat it when I was an adult. And I still beat it. I mean, but yeah, but it's kind of the same thing that I get with Castlevania 1 and 3. Like, I loved 1 and 3 as a kid, but I never was able to beat them. And since I've been back, I beat them. I've beaten both of them, and now I don't really quite feel that nostalgia because they're still really fresh in my mind. So it's like I have replaced all that nostalgia as a kid with just kind of more recent memories about it. The thing is, though, is I still have this nostalgic feeling for Castlevania 2, and I have not played it since I was a kid. Like, well, I take it back. I've played a little bit, but I mean, I've not like gone through and beaten it and all that sort of thing. And it's just like, I wonder if it like stunts some sort of growth, or here I am taking away these precious resources of things as a child that if I ever felt kind of like, man, I miss those old days. I don't get that with that. I don't have and I am not a person who really dwells too much on the past to begin with, but it's just kind of weird. Like, I mean, take for example, people recently just Pokemon 20th anniversary, the first generation games came out, and there's a lot of excitement about that because it's hitting on those nostalgia strings, and people also who love Pokemon but never played the old ones, they get a chance to try it too. Thing is that I wonder if that's the same thing that affects other people. Do you, when you play an old game that you are nostalgic for, and you loved as a kid, when you try to play it now, does it feel any different? Do you get to the point where you beat it and then it's kind of maybe soured a little bit on it? And it's the idea of things left best in the past sort of thing. Leave them buried. But I'm not to say that's like killing your childhood or anything like that. It's just, it almost feels like I bury it when I do that sort of thing. And in always trying to satiate nostalgia, I wonder what really ends up happening with that sort of thing, because here I am thinking about something from an earlier time, and I'm now bringing that to the present. Am I really developing anything from that? Am I thinking way too hard about that? Probably, because I don't know. It feels like hollowed out memories at that point. Like, I can talk about those sorts of things. Like Mega Man. Mega Man's another one of those kind of cases. But the thing was, I beat Mega Man as a kid, so I can go back to those games and still have a nostalgic feeling for them because I beat them. So maybe that's something in itself, is that when you go back and tackle something that you weren't able to do as a kid, and then you do it, you kind of like stomping on your child's self, your former self. Stomp. I'm the greatest. Not really, but I don't know. Maybe like I said, maybe I'm thinking way too much about that. But I do wonder if that is not a good thing, because I don't know, like, because you're always trying. I'm always trying to learn new things, or at least try to experience different things, and here it is going back to something that I've already experienced and just kind of pushing that further. And I wonder if that is really such a good thing, because at least when I got older and I started playing some of the not some, but a lot of the retro games, there was plenty of games I had never played. So I was coming at this from a French self Como talez-vous? I'm looking at you. But but I'm coming from a fresh point of view about it, and there's not really much going on before that, and then here's something new. And so there's no nostalgia to replace with more recent stuff. And yeah, I guess as time goes on, I can become nostalgic about those sorts of things. I mean, even though I've even though I graduated somehow, even though I graduated from university nearly 7 years ago, I'm not nostalgic about it. I guess that's what happens when you get old. Because there's not much of a difference other than just getting fatter and older and maybe hairier. Like, or at least in some spots, but there's just not a lot of change from that time to now for me, in the sense of just physical. Of course, mentally and emotionally, I would like to think I change, but in the same hand, I kind of wonder if I'm just not the same person I was. Like, I've talked to my cousin before, and she always would say that I grew up a lot faster than everybody else. So I just never, I don't know. There's just maybe because I wasn't really able to have as much of a childhood in certain ways. In some ways, yes, but there were certain times where I really, I don't want to say matured, because that's, I wouldn't say that, but at least probably put fun in a different category. It's just, I don't know, but I would hope that I would become nostalgic about some things from then, but I just don't. And it was the same way with college that I was with elementary and middle school. And yeah, certainly there was times where I had hardships about things, but even if there was a miserable time at school, school's only X amount of your time. There's other things that you can do. Hopefully, even just read or listen to the radio or watch TV, so you can still be nostalgic about that, about different things. I guess this might be kind of weird, but I guess one of the things I'm more nostalgic about now than I ever was, or that I am about other things now, is fucking Home Improvement. I'm nostalgic for that show because I loved watching that as a kid, but I've not watched it ever since to completely just break everything when it comes to nostalgia at that point. And I'm kind of rambling about this, and I wonder, am I just way off base on that? When you play things that or watch things or listen to things that, because I think music's a bit different. Music, you can boom, pinpoint a fucking moment in time where you were listening to that, and then you just have those kinds of emotions, and then that's really about it. There's music's pretty cool about that, but with games, I just don't get that. With movies, nah, never get that. I mean, I can remember watching Toy Story 1 and The Lion King in theaters, but I'm not nostalgic about them. But I mean, that's just me. So please, after that ramble fest, uh, let me know your thoughts on nostalgia. Like I said, I know I put out profiting off of nostalgia, and then I just kind of went into that, but I just brought up what I said about that earlier. It's if you are using that, you've got to push beyond. You or not push beyond, but at some point you're gonna have to change gears and then get younger to be able to pluck at those nostalgia strings of other people, younger generation, like like the generation older than me, the one preceding mine. Uh, there a lot of them are not really into Mario or things like that. They're not into games, so they can just say it. They're like, oh, whatever. Uh, the generation younger than mine, they can see, like for example, my siblings. My youngest one's like 13. And yeah, she sees Kirby and she's like, oh, that's cute, but that's really about that's about the extent of it. So, woo. Personally, I don't think it's a bad thing, but you just got to be careful that you're not. Uh, if you're using it to profit off of by the soul of, oh, let's take Mario and put him with Ghostbusters and make a T-shirt. Yeah, okay. At least it's being a little different. You're kind of combining things, so that takes a little bit of thought to it. But if you're using the experience and the joys of nostalgia to create new things, like a lot of people do through with Kickstarter, it's the same thing I'm doing with a game. Is that those older types of games and stuff, that we don't have anymore, we have a lot more now because of indie and stuff that people are harkening back to. And so I think that's using nostalgia to maybe tell your own stories or to kind of express your own sorts of childhoods to other people. Or maybe not, I don't know. I like that a lot more than just taking characters and stuff from the generation, from that nostalgic period, and then just profiting off of those. Even though that's a bit hypocritical for me to say since I bought some of these shirts and stuff, it feels less creative to do that sort of thing to me, because you're in all honesty, you're piggybacking off of those things, those memories. It's not that you've created something new that people find interesting. You're tacking onto those nostalgia strings, and just like anything, just like any sort of stringed instrument, the more you pluck it, eventually those strings are going to break, and when they do. But I've blabbered on enough, and I need to blow my nose. So let's take a break and regroup on the other end. right there. That song was Seimei no Kagayaki. And that means, or that kind of translates out to like the brilliance of life. The sparkling life kind of thing. The sparkles of life. But, and that is by Yugen. And I played a piece of his song from last episode. And I just really like Yugen's work. He is pretty awesome with his work. It's pretty fantastic stuff, so definitely check it out. Now, here we're at the kind of the tail end of everything, and that is the quote section. It's quote time. Quote time. That was really dumb. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. What am I doing? Oh, goodness, the chair. But this quote is a bit lengthier, and honestly, it's rather straightforward, even if it is a bit lengthier. But I thought this kind of worked really well with the ramblings that I had when it came to nostalgia and kind of profiting off of it a bit. So that is this. It is Homer, and it is from the Odyssey. Here comes the quote. These nights are endless, and a man can sleep through them, or he can enjoy listening to stories, and you have no need to go to bed before it's time. Too much sleep is only a bore, and of the others, anyone whose heart and spirit urge him can go outside and sleep. And then, when the dawn shows, breakfast first, then go out to tend the swine of our master. But we two, sitting here in the shelter, eating and drinking, shall entertain each other, remembering and retelling our sad sorrows. For afterwards, a man who has suffered much and wondered much has pleasure out of his sorrows. So, yeah, that is... It's like I said, it's straightforward. The issues and troubles you face today, or the... I don't want to say aimless, but the path you trek now, as the cat meows, that poor feline. Oh, it's okay, Stash. But is an very old cat. The cat's like 20. I think he's got Alzheimer's. It's kind of depressing. But it's not my cat, so I can't really say things about it. So I say things on here that nobody will ever listen to, even though it's not really that mean. But anywho, that quote is, despite the troubles you have today, or the path you trek now that you are uncertain of, maybe, or just maybe it's a struggle, as time goes, it will be something that you can draw fruit from and enjoy and find humor in, or maybe not even just humor, but at least enjoyment out of, either retelling those stories or just kind of thinking about them and stuff. There's definitely plenty of times where I've thought of really, really sucky times in my life, but then I've just kind of just thought of really funny things, and it makes me laugh. And this kind of comes back to how the power of nostalgia. We were talking about a little bit in the earlier thing, rambling, talking. But it's, I don't know. I find that sort of thing really, really nice, because even though the cat continues to meow, it's okay, Stash, it's okay. But you're going from a place of, especially when you're younger. When you're younger, you think that this is it. This is how it is, and this is all sorts of miserable times, and everybody's a dick, and then you're just kind of like, this sucks. Or you could be the other way and be like, man, everybody's awesome and everybody's great, and then life smacks you upside the face. It's like, no, stop it. But particularly with the sorrowful one, is I'm kind of more geared towards with this quote. That is it's something to think about, because we don't ever think about that. A lot of times, particularly the North American culture, I mean, in Japan too, you see this. It's a lot of reminiscing of the glory days that are the high school days. Like, how? No. As much as I had really good times in high school, particularly compared to middle school or elementary school, like, I always felt that there's got to be more. Like, there's got to be more. And even in college did not feel quite right to me. Like, college kind of felt like high school plus. I've never really, like, I still keep in contact with some of my professors and stuff, and they tell me that each year it feels more and more like high school, which is really bad. And I'm thankful I'm out of college now. But I just don't get it. Oh, no. But no, like, it's just, so with our cultures nowadays, you know, we always thinking, oh man, high school is the greatest time. I wish I could go back to high school. And I'm not here to rail on those people. If you wish you could go back to high school because you found it more simplistic of a life, because you're not worrying about bills and that sort of thing, okay, I understand that. I get that. Okay, you're not having to work 9 to 5 and keep your job so you can pay for bills or take care of a family. So there are less responsibilities in that regard. However, school and being a student is a fucking responsibility that we seem to just neglect around here. Whatever, we don't care. It's just school. It's just learning. It's just your fucking future. But with that quote, for afterwards a man who has suffered much and wondered much has pleasure out of his sorrows, you can, you know, and yeah, a lot of people probably who are depressed or just have really shitty lives are gonna not hear this, but I mean, if they were to hear that, they would think, I would imagine some of them would probably just laugh and think that it was fucking retarded. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I think it's a good thing. Particularly, like I said, when you're a kid, you're having these issues, and as you get older, you could look back at some of these issues and be like, wow, how lame was that? And that hurt me? What? Like, really? Huh? So you can have a good laugh out of it that way. And I don't really like that whole let's glorify high school like that. I don't know. I mean, like I said, nothing against high school. I had a good time in high school. Maybe not the most great time. I mean, it could have been better, but to have been better, I think it would have been greedy on my part. But I still had a fantastic time, and I got to grow and be in people's lives who made mine better, and I hope that they could say the same thing about me. But as you're going along, as my family's cat continues to meow, as you go along, you kind of get to the point where those kind of troubles just turn sweet. And that's the same thing with nostalgia. Nostalgia is hometown and pain and ache. So yeah, there is melancholy to it. There is this sorrow to it, but there's also just the moment of thinking about that, and then the joys of those younger years kind of thing. But whatever. That is it. I'm going to take care of this cat because I think he is kind of lost, unfortunately. So, but yeah. I hope everybody had a good one. If you've got any sort of comments, definitely let me know. You can tweet at me at Twitter. You can tweet at me at Muragaru553. MURAG. I can't even say the words now. MURAGARU553. With all that in, I'm going to end on a really, really awesome song. as all of them are because I picked them. But we're going to end on a song called Nighttrain by SSH. And if you may have heard of SSH before, particularly if you've played Stepmania. So he's got a lot of songs that people have taken and put on Stepmania, and he is awesome. So that is it. I will catch you next week. Take it easy and have a good one.